I have to move approval that we go back in city council since we had made that motion to go out.
Yes. We passed the motion right before we took the recess.
Reconvene. You got to reconvene city council.
Back in city council.
Oh, yeah. Can we have a motion to go back in the city council meeting? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Okay. So thank you very much. We did pass a resolution. I would like to now read it into the record officially. A resolution urging the South Carolina General Assembly to adopt H. 3063, hate bill. Whereas, according to the Federal Bureau of Investigations in 2017, hate crimes across the United States rose by 17%, and nearly 3 out of 5 incidents were related to race and ethnicity. Whereas City Council adopted the hate intimidation ordinance set forth in Section 21-1 of the Code of the City of Charleston, which provides for penalties for persons convicted of a crime set forth in Chapter 1 of the Code with the intent to intimidate another person because of the actual or perceived race, color, creed, religion, ancestry, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, physical or mental disability, or national origin. And whereas South Carolina is one of only 5 states in the United States does not have any laws on hate crimes, and whereas H. 3063 is currently being considered by the House Judiciary Committee, and whereas H. 3063 provides penalties for a person convicted of a crime with the intent to assault, intimidate, or threaten a person because of his or her race, religion, color, sex, age, national origin, sexual orientation, or homelessness, and whereas City Council desires to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens and visitors of the City of Charleston by urging the South Carolina General Assembly to support H. 3063, the hate crime bill. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Charleston City Council urges the South Carolina General Assembly to support H. 3063 hate crime bill, resolved this 28th day of January 2020 in City Council chambers, and it has passed.
Amen.
There we go.
Would anyone else like to make remarks?
Mr. Mayor, we have a report on our Public Safety Committee next. If you want me to go on that a little bit, that was one of the items that we had on our agenda for this afternoon.
Okay.
So the clerk cleaned up the desk too much, I think. You may have been a little bit too efficient.
Okay, so next will be our council committee reports. Right up is the one on public safety. Councilmember Shade.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had 2 meetings, one on the 21st and one on the 28th. I'm going to jump to the meeting on today regarding the passage of the hate crime resolution. I think it took approximately 1 second for us to pass that resolution. I just wanted to make a few comments that echoing my colleague, Councilman Waring, and thank you for bringing this up. I attended the hate crime forum that city police officers had originated, I think about a year ago, we had at the Charleston Museum. It is unconscionable to me that in the year 2020, that we have to address this. I mean, it is beyond my comprehension that we have to address issues in which people are singled out because of their sexual orientation, their religion, their creed, their ethnicity. But we have to do that. And we heard the statistics from the chief and from our 2 guest speakers who, I'm not sure they're still with us or not, but in reality, we need to send a strong message. And the message is to our friends in Columbia, pass this bill now. And I think we need to do that with a loud voice. I think we need to go up there and picket and protest until they get this thing done. It took Mayor Wiley him to walk from Charleston to Columbia with the American flag to start the discussion on bringing the Confederate flag down from the dome of the State House. It took not the lives of our fellow citizens to take the Confederate flag out of the State House. And how that State House has not passed a bill after the Mother Emanuel massacre is beyond my comprehension. And for them not to do that, God have mercy on them. And I can't use words strong enough for us to impress upon, we are the laughingstock of the country if we don't get this bill passed. One other state, I was interviewed the other day about this by a reporter who came from Wyoming. And we may remember back about 20 years or so ago, that young man was tortured and brutalized, and which started the dialogue across the country about hate crime. Wyoming does not have a hate crime bill. Can you imagine that? The state that started the initiation of this discussion does not have a hate crime bill. We can't be left in the dust with this. We need to make sure that our citizens from our community realize that we're fighting for this bill to being passed. God bless Representative Gilliard for taking the torch on this. And we need to get our delegation, give them the support that they need and get this thing passed. And the governor needs to make this a #1 priority. Frankly, in all due respect, that's more important than us getting $10 million to fix funding problems. Because as you said, Councilman Waring, when they do desecrate a synagogue, the message is not just to that particular house of worship. It's to every one of us. It sends a clear message that hate is alive and well in this community. And if we don't have the tools to enforce something to make that a felony, we did what we could, and it's a misdemeanor, 30 days in punishment in our county jail. But if we don't pass something to get this thing resolved, then we're not showing our true colors on this thing. I'll just finish with this one other comment. Many years ago, when we were debating in the General Assembly criminal domestic violence, and some of us older folks will remember this, the General Assembly passed a law that the punishment for cruelty to animals was much more severe than it was on spouses or children in criminal domestic violence acts. And can you imagine that? That's the mindset that we're fighting. That's the mindset that we're fighting in our state. So the message I just want to make very clear and very obvious, we need to do more than what we're doing right here tonight to get this legislation passed, and we should take up the torch and follow through with the rest of our delegation. So thank you for allowing me to ramp a little bit, but I'm just passionate about this. I thank you again, my colleague, Councilman Waring, for bringing this resolution to the table, and let's get this thing done up in Columbia. Thank you all.
Right.
Oh, I got 3 more reports. I'm sorry.
Hey.
All right. I got all wound up.
That was 1 second, we're in trouble.
All right, so if Councilmember Sackman thought we had an easy committee that he was on, he's been worked pretty hard the last couple of weeks. At our meeting on the 21st, we took up a called a Good Deed Award Program. That is a program from the Citadel Athletic Department to partner with the City Police Department to recognize citizens during the 2020 baseball season who have done good things for the community. They have a certain criteria for doing that. We support that resolution, and that passed. The other ordinances that were taken up dealt with this problem we're having with people who are, I guess for lack of a better word, loitering on streets and sidewalks. We amended chapter 28, section 45 to include a provision about trespass. So that passed as well. And then we passed an amendment to get rid of abandoned boats to pass on the cost to the landowner. So that was our January 21st meeting. The meeting we had today took up 2 issues. One was the hate bill resolution. The other was to discuss the update on fire station number 11. And the short version of that is that we passed a motion to authorize the mayor to use the tools within the contract with the general contractor to pursue whatever remedies we may have available from that. So that is our very brief report. And I'd ask that we adopt the 2 ordinances that are amended and the motion to give the mayor the authority to address our general contractor on fire station number 11.
Right. Any discussion or questions about any of those things? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next will be our Committee on Traffic and Transportation. Councilmember Seekings.
Second.
I don't think there's any more to say than that. You got 10 minutes, I got 10 seconds. So I got
Nothing more to say? Okay. Did y'all talk about anything at the meeting? I missed it.
well, Mayor, you did slip in a little bit late. No, we did. A couple things, and I want to thank Mr. Benjamin because he's always on top of it. We were supposed to get a report from the county on the county transportation projects and plans. We're going to put that off till our next meeting. County's busy actually doing things, so that's good. And then Mr. Benjamin gave us an update on traffic signal maintenance agreements and updates. There's a lot going on with traffic signal maintenance. What I can just tell you is this: it's a function of technology and funding, and Mr. Benjamin and I think our committee are going to pursue both to make sure, among other things, we have traffic light coordinated, we have the downtown traffic signal synchronization process in place and have technology there. Councilmember Brady brought up Johns Island, and he's an advocate for Johns Island. We certainly need to think about smart light out there, particularly at River and Maybank, and so it was a comprehensive update that we got. We did not take any action, although we did encourage Mr. Benjamin, and we would encourage this council and Mr. Mayor to keep on top of all these issues as we think about traffic and transportation going forward. So
Great.
Nothing to vote on. That was
Okay.
important.
Thank you for that update. Councilmember Jackson and Griffin.
I would just like to enhance Councilmember Seeking's report because part of the director's report, Director Benjamin's report to us, was to answer some questions about what we can do to move forward the crosswalk opportunities that we have on St. Andrews Boulevard as the bikeway goes across, which is essentially Highway 61 as it's about to split. And then the county is it sounds like pretty dedicated to improving the pedestrian intersection at Sycamore. So between those two, we would have a much better walkable corridor up and down 61. But we don't have a specific plan to fund the bikeway crosswalk, so we need to work on that. The citizens are out. They've been studying the area. They had a count the other night that Councilmember Saccharin represented his district in doing. So I just feel like that's an important one to the community.
Thank you. Councilmember Griffin.
Mr. Mayor, while we're talking about traffic and transportation, I just wanted to remind everybody that tomorrow night at West Ashley High School, I think it's from 5 to 7, is the widening of Glenn McConnell public information session hosted by Charleston County and Davis and Floyd. And there's going to be a separate room where you can understand how noise barriers work, which is important, sound barriers. And they're going to be talking about that project that goes from basically Magwood on all the way to Beast Ferry Road. So that's from 5 to 7 in the auditorium of West Ashley High School.
Great. Terrific. Councilmember Shealy.
I'd like to add on to Councilman Griffin's comments to let you know it is from 5 to 7, but there's no set presentation time, but they will be doing those sound demonstrations every 30 minutes. So right on up till 7 o'clock. And I did the sound demonstration today with a couple of city council members from North Charleston, and it is some great technology, and it's really, I guess, ear-opening to understand exactly what these sound walls will do and, when they're needed and those types of things. So I encourage everybody to come. But you don't have to be there at 5 o'clock is the point that I wanted to make.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate what Councilmember Jackson talked about. Councilmember Saccharin, myself, County Councilmember Brantley Moody, Katie Zimmerman, and several other folks were walking this area for the bikeway and greenway. There's a big gap trying to get across St. Andrews Boulevard. But we did take a good hard look at that, and so I know your committee's looking at that as well, but we've got a lot of work to do with that. There's some easy solutions with the money that I think that are allocated by County Council to addressing the improvement of Sycamore and St. Andrews Boulevard.
Right.
So we've got some more work to do on that, but thanks for bringing that back up to our attention.
Great. Terrific. All right, let's move.
That concludes my report.
That concludes your report. Next, the Committee on Public Works and Utilities. Councilmember Waring.
Second.
Discussion.
This items
A1, 2, 3, all those passed unanimous. And so let's get a motion on that to get the money hopefully approved.
Those ways
How you want to do?
Well, no, I'd like to accept out item 4 because there were some amendments on that, and I think the balance of the council that wasn't there should hear some of those changes.
We'll take a motion to approve
Second.
1, 2, and 3. Right.
Second.
Any discussion on those? They were already before Ways and Means. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And then, just by way of information, the stormwater updates, we're going to have a wider public session to bring everybody up on council on the stormwater projects that are in process, teed up to go next. So you can come with your questions. We'll have a committee of the whole, if you will, as we did with the stormwater manual. We have one like that for the updates, to bring everybody, particularly new people on council, up to speed. So that was just information. No, but that'll be scheduled, I think, in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, Mr. Fountain is going to take care of that for us. So now the stormwater ordinance. It passed unanimous with a couple of changes to it. One, we had a lot of input, as you know, from the private sector, which is vital to this process, in addition to our staff and, of course, AECOM, our consultant on it. There's still some issues around the area of modeling and technical terms of the runoff, 4.84 versus 3.23, which makes a lot of sense to every one of us, I know. That's right. But we're all being brought up to speed on this, even the lay people, which I'm certainly one of those. But progress is being moved forward. It passed with a look back. Think about it. Let's put it in. It's not going to go into effect until July. The mayor asked for the task force to remain in place and to meet quarterly to make whatever necessary improvements between hopefully the first vote today and something being effective in July. And even when it's effective in July, at Mr. Fountain's suggestion, by first meeting or so in February, we have a chance to test this, kick the tires, and if there are any things that really sticks out as being a sore thumb, we can come back and institute those changes in February. With that, I'll open up, Mr. Mayor, to the council members. And by the way, thank the council members who were able to come, who were not part of that committee. We probably had almost 8 council members in there, 8 or 9 council members. So the ones who were not able to come, or anyone else who had any questions, or any members from the committee who...
Right. Can I entertain a motion to approve the ordinance as amended?
As amended, yes, sir.
As amended. All right. Councilmember Griffin.
I did.
You have a second?
Got 2 seconds. Anyway.
Yes, I just wanted to add that we had some discussion about how we can continue to mesh our documents as we move forward. The comp plan, and we've got the Dutch Dialogues report, and we have this document. They all serve similar yet very different purposes. One's a planning document, the other, is kind of a mix of the two, the Dutch Dialogues, and this is more of a technical review document. But we're going to have an ordinance that we're obviously giving first reading to tonight, and I'm hoping that the mayor and I talked about this at the end, come up with some very simple language that at least alludes to those other documents, that we're working together to try to do that, because ultimately there are many areas of Charleston where we want to really greatly reduce fill and build. And one way to do that is to reference the Dutch Dialogue report in this technical review document, just enough to where it gives our staff another tool that they can look at, because the Dutch Dialogue report has certain areas of Charleston where it says we should not fill and build. One is Gadsden Creek, and others many areas of Johns Island and Church Creek. So we just saw it tonight, how concerned our citizens are for this practice, and it's an outdated practice that, while it may be a cheaper alternative than other ways, cheaper alternatives have led to a lot of the problems that we have today. So as a good faith effort, we all as a community, our developers and our city, all of our residents have to try to work together to right our wrongs and learn from our mistakes. And I think that one good way to do that, well, we've already made the first step by approving the Dutch dialogue resolution, but to give it some teeth, we have to find a way to mesh these documents and refer to them so our staff has some tools to make sure that our developers are practicing in a way that doesn't hurt our great citizens that we already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. We've talked about a number of plans that would be applicable to the stormwater manual. But for me, there's one plan that we don't mention, and that's the green plan. Now, I do know that we're looking at the green plan. But when you look at the green plan and you look at some of the green infrastructure things that we have in the stormwater manual, they mirror each other. I mean, these are things that we met, I think over 800 of us, okay, met to develop that green plan.
So why didn't city council pass it?
Well, you know, listen, I'll answer your question, okay? Listen.
We never voted on it.
Yes, we did. We voted to accept it instead of voting to implement it, okay?
Right.
And we were, I mean, those of us that were on the committee, of course, we were pushing adoption of it.
That's right.
But we could not get the votes. So I don't want you to think that I was pushing accepting. I was pushing adopting that plan.
Right.
And I'm saying all this to say that, you know, we don't want to be reinventing the wheel, okay? And if we have a solid plan on the shelf, let's take it off like you've done, okay? And see how we can apply many of those provisions that some of them go a bit beyond what we have in stormwater. I mean, it even talks about things that the city can do, okay, to reduce CO emissions, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of suggestions in there. I just don't want that to be another plan that people in this city invested hundreds of hours in. I don't want it to go for naught. So when we start talking stormwater and the comp plan, in the consolidated plan, somebody please mention the green plan, because the green plan has been there, okay, for some time, while not implemented and just accepted. And the reason why it was just accepted, Mayor, I can give you the rationale for why council voted to just accept the plan as opposed to adopting the plan, because it was not cost out. Okay, to implement that plan as written, I don't know whether or not our budget could take it.
Right, exactly.
So I do think that that was a part of the reason why it was accepted.
This may be off the topic, but I do want to briefly respond that wonderful Katie McCain has been going through the green plan and has come up with a grid of the things that we have done and are starting on and things that we don't need to do anymore. I mean, some of the things are obsolete after 10 years, believe it or not. But she's analyzing everything in the plan and had the first report to the Sustainability Committee. So it's off the shelf. We are working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Waring.
As a continuation of the stormwater report, one of the things, several things we discussed in the committee was, the information we brought back was, are there any unintended consequences on affordable housing? Stormwater drainage plan, in particular on infill.
Right.
For example, Pinecrest, the area that Councilman Shahid talked about earlier, several vacant lots where new homes have been built. How would this stormwater bill, stormwater manual affect that? How would it affect the revitalization of West Ashley? I mean, from the standpoint of a cost perspective. Some of those things we need and actually look at so we won't have some unintended consequences as we unroll this. And the second thing is you and I were supposed to remember to mention the trees.
Jacob, next task force meeting of stormwater manual, we want a full review of the tree ordinance and how it intersects with the stormwater manual. Yep, got it. Councilmember Shade? No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I made these comments in our committee, and I just very brief about it, but I just, for the sake of council, this manual was a result of 3 council members present with various members of our community, our stakeholders. You saw them here yesterday at our workshop meeting. They were present this afternoon at our committee meeting. So this plan is not popped out of just some pie in the sky kind of idea that we sat behind and worked on. This was a revision of our manual and our restrictions that came from a lot of input from the people who are involved and who's going to be directly impacted by that. So it's a very good plan. I'm impressed by it. Let's get this first reading approved, and we'll tinker with it as we go along if we need be. And we'll agree to have that review process no later than February 1st to see where we may stand with it after it's been in effect. Thank you.
Councilmember Appel and then Jackson.
I just wanted to echo a lot of the sentiment that we've already heard tonight. I think this stormwater manual is where the rubber meets the road on these development issues. You know, at our first meeting of this year, we passed the Dutch Dialogues, which is very aspirational and it's very informative. It doesn't have any regulatory teeth. So I think it's very, very positive that at the next council meeting, we're giving first reading to a document that actually does have teeth. And I am convinced that this document does advance several of the key findings of Dutch Dialogues. Everything from, incorporating rain gardens, rain barrels to redevelopment, infill projects, to looking at a watershed approach to stormwater management for the larger developments that we're seeing come to our city. So I'm very pleased by this stormwater manual. I agree that there may be a few things we need to look at and tweak and make sure we get it right. But I'm also very encouraged by the fact that we're going to keep this dialogue going with the development community, with citizens and groups that are concerned about this very important issue, because like the United States Constitution, this document is going to be a living document, a living, breathing, evolving document. And I think that's very positive. So thanks to everybody who's been involved.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think that Councilman Brady was next. I think he hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, I hadn't seen, I'm sorry, I didn't see you out of the other corner of my eye. I'm happy to call on Councilmember Brady next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the Stormwater Department for the manual. It's definitely needed. I just want to express, and I'm going to vote to give it first reading, but I do want to express some concerns. Our workshop was at 2:30 yesterday afternoon, and even some council members found it hard to get here. We had a public hearing at 4, and so we're asking Joe Citizen to come and talk about it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when even members of council can't make it. And so I would just ask that after we move this beyond first reading, if there's a road show that we can schedule, because we know there are areas of the city that have been active in this. It's also, there are people in our community that are concerned that can't get downtown, whether it's through their work schedule or their transportation. And I think before we pass this in fullness, we need to go and educate the public. And I understand, the task force having stakeholders and whatnot, but I really think we need to educate the public because this is something that they've been asking for us to carry the banner and the torch on. And I'd like to see us take this on the road a little bit before we end up giving it second and third reading. Thank you.
Not a bad idea. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Councilmember Brady. I would agree with you on that. I do feel like this, it's a technical document that most of us will probably never open up again once we feel confident that we're putting something in place that is going to serve our citizens, our development and building community, and our city overall to the best that we have the ability to put it out there at this moment in time, knowing what we know now that we didn't know even the, 5-6 years ago when it was last revised. So I just want to echo the support for this first reading tonight, that we get this living document in motion and do give our expert community the chance to model the things that they're the most concerned about in any sort of, formulaic implementation detail. I don't know if we've had it on the record tonight that when Mr. Fountain gave his presentation at the work session yesterday, that he made it clear that a lot of these things are going to be further enhanced by technical bulletins that will basically be the how-to, the YouTube of how you do the formulas and things like that. We're going to make available all of the background information that the Stormwater Department has been shepherding on our behalf of giving engineers as much background information as possible. So we're going to be creating an enabling system, I think, to help our partners in Charleston's future come to the city when they're ready to be reviewed on all the levels of this document, fully prepared to make their best formulas work for the property that they're representing. I can't thank Mr. Fountain and Kinsey Holton in particular. I can't thank them enough for the way that they were able to translate to those of us who are making decisions like this at a higher level, all the way down to the conservationists, the environmental engineers that are hired by our public entities of partners and Clemson, and it was really a privilege to sit on a group that was together from the beginning. They knew that this was something that was their responsibility and was like a gift they were giving to the city for the future. So I feel very privileged to have been part of that process on a monthly basis for the last year plus. And I do support the amendments that you all agreed to at the Public Works Committee this afternoon. I think it would be very strategic of us to continue to have the quarterly meetings of the existing task force, as many people as can volunteer to continue on that basis. It is going to be the living process that helps us learn by doing, and you can model to death, but you can't really until you're actually out there in the field trying to make a piece of property into something that it isn't at the time that you're working with it. I'm not sure that 6 months after the fact is going to be enough of a look, a long enough look back, but we'll be able to decide that when the experts come in that have tried to use the whole manual to the fullest extent. So I really think this is the time. The citizens are watching. They are trusting that our own staff and our own AECOM representatives have had their best interest at heart. If you read the terminology in Chapter 2, and you can just tell that this is something that we've never made ourselves responsible to do. We are not looking at green infrastructure as a required process at this moment in time. We're not looking at low impact development. We talk about that, but we can't regulate it. So that's what this document is going to do. It'll be the layer on top of the land use, and that's my final reminder. I think that we've seen clearly over the last year that this is the tool that is sort of the fruition of the land that we're making available through our zoning and our master planning for property owners to use to their highest and best ability. And so we have got to hold ourselves responsible as best we can as soon as the comp plan is in motion to make hard decisions that may not be, what we all envisioned even a few years ago, but we've got the information, we've got the science, we've got the experience of looking at before and after. So I'm looking forward to that part of it as much as I have enjoyed being part of this team process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to call the question, but just hearing comments from the committee meeting this afternoon and here tonight, and we're giving this first reading, and it doesn't become effective actually until July 1, which gives all the engineers some time. So just listening to y'all, I'd propose we not bring this back for second reading at the next meeting, and maybe not even the next one, so that Councilmember Griffin's suggestion that we review some of the language in the mission statement of the document, and we address the questions that Councilmember Waring had today at the committee meeting, and even have an opportunity, say, within the next 30 to 45 days of having another public, somewhere else other than City Hall, another public dissemination of this, and maybe even one more meeting of the task force talking about the tree ordinances, and then come back and give it second, third reading, because they know it's coming after we give it first reading. Does that sound like a plan? Yeah. All right. So any further discussion for first reading? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
So, Mayor, we have to go back, and item A needs to be adopted. This was put on the agenda after we initially sent it out, because the Public Works Department needs this item.
Okay. We have to vote on the acceptance of a right-of-way in item A.
By approval. So while the clerk was telling me.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So anything further, Councilmember Waring, from your committee? Okay, great. So next, our Committee on Ways and Means, Councilmember Gregory.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. There are no bills for third or second reading. So we have items 1 and 2 under first reading, right?
We have no second reading, that's correct.
Correct. Items 1 and 2 on the first reading. Number 2 being that ordinance I mentioned earlier that we would establish alternates for the Planning Commission. So any discussion on 1 or 2, assuming we're taking them together?
Motion?
I made a motion.
We had a motion to take them both together, I think.
Mr. Mayor, we may need to back up. I'm not sure. Maybe I missed it. But did we talk about the noise ordinance?
We didn't take any action.
We didn't. It got deferred, basically, to the next meeting. Apologetic, but we were running out of time. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to accept bills up for first reading, number 1 and number 2 together, correct? All right.
Yes, I made the motion.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be long, but, and I appreciate being able to have a conversation with you as I express my interest in the item number 2 up for first reading, and 2, as the Planning Commission has been put on the agenda to amend I call it their operations, part of the zoning code, which basically defines how the Planning Commission does its work on behalf of the city. I was at the November meeting when this item was tabled on their agenda or deferred on their agenda, but they did discuss it, and what they discussed at that point in time was their great interest in having their own workshop to be able to really sort of, in the public, but not as part of a formal meeting, drill down into what it would look like for them to make some changes to their operating way of being. And so I will vote for first reading on this, but I do think it needs to be with the understanding that before it comes back to us for second reading, the Planning Commission will be encouraged and given the opportunity to have their own work session. They have some other ideas potentially about changes that they would want to amend into their operating section of the zoning code. And I think that we should encourage them to take ownership of their work and their responsibilities and their new understanding of, how they're being respected and given the opportunity to operate on behalf of the citizenry who are going to their meetings and expecting decisions that have some background delivered at the time that they're making their decisions. So I do feel like the Planning Commission is very interested. They're going to have 3 new members, and they're very interested in being able to take that time and
All right.
really discuss it among themselves. The Board of Zoning, or the Design Review Board, was able to do that before they came forward, and I do feel like that's the right thing for them to be able to
All right.
do at the same time.
Well, conversations are good. If they want to make a recommendation to us, we'll be happy to
Right, but they need to
consider
get the
it.
formal
Yeah.
for a workshop.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay.
Call for the question.
Any further discussion on 1 and 2? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're going to go into executive session. I will mention that a lot of times we go into executive session, we don't conduct any business when we come back. We probably will this evening, just to let folks know. All right, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Executive session, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show that no action was taken while we were in executive session. Now, can
I
I...
have a motion to make, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
The motion is to resolve our ongoing litigation with our contractor for the Gilliard improvements. For that, the city will pay to them the total of $2.25 million plus the contract balance. In addition, the city will reserve all rights and claims against all parties relating to latent defects and warranty obligations.
Second.
And let the record show that in addition to our payment, that the professionals that were working for the city will also be paying $2.75 million as part of the lawsuit settlement. So in essence, the total settlement is the contract balance, what was still owed on the contract, plus a total of $5 million, but only 2.25 of that is coming from the city of Charleston.
That's my understanding as well, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Any further business to come before us this evening?
Move to adjourn.
We stand adjourned.
Mayor.